Welcome to the Latin Wealth Podcast, a podcast dedicated to educating the Latino community about entrepreneurship, investing, and business.
Yo, what's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome to another episode to Wealth Wednesday. Super excited about today's episode because today we're going to jump into the Apple Vision Pro headset that just recently came out. We're going to dive into this product and we're going to dive into the impact that it could possibly have on society, and not only society, but on Apple, the company as a whole. We literally just hit record and we were talking about like, man, this could be a product that could be a make or break for this company. So we're going to dive into that. And we're also going to dive into another article that was basically discussing why you got to be concerned about investing in the top 7 tech stocks, right? When you talk about Meta, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, Tesla, and Nvidia, this article is kind of breaking down like, hey, I know these have been making people gains for a couple years now, but be very cautious about um, continuously investing in these stocks over the next X amount of years. So we're going to dive into both of those things today. Two very, very interesting articles that came out, not only article, but the product as well. And before we jump into that, Jeremiah, how you feeling today, man? How you doing?
Feeling great, man. We got hot topics, I would say. Probably
Yeah.
none more realistic than the Apple one, but I'm feeling good. I'm actually excited to dive into this. Hopefully people get some information, get some gems from this.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive right into it. So the Apple Vision Pro product just came out. It came out on February 2nd. The price point, and we're gonna break all of this down if you guys don't know what it is. It came out on February 2nd. It came out it's starting at $3,400. Now there's other upgrades and whatnot, and that thing can go up to I think about $4,000, but it's essentially a VR headset that has been created by Apple. The Apple Vision Pro seamlessly blends digital content with your physical space, right? So just think about, if you can't envision it, just think about like you literally sitting on your couch and you have the headset on, you can see your room, you can see the kids walking around, you can see your spouse walking past, but you're able to pull up different windows in your space. So whether it's the web, YouTube, there's different apps that you can pull up and you can integrate the digital content with your physical space. Hopefully, this is not going over your head, and I'm breaking it down for you guys. But what they're calling this technology is spatial computing. And all that really is, it's an umbrella term that basically encompasses virtual reality and augmented reality. Okay, it's fusing the two. And Apple, they always got to do something different. They always got to name something different. It's basically a VR headset. It's also it's not the only VR headset on the market. We also have the Meta Quest Pro.
Mhm.
I think they have 3 versions of it out, right?
Yep.
Meta Quest, yeah, they have number 3
Yep.
out. That one's priced at $500, and I'm sure the version 1 and 2 they're probably even cheaper than that. Yeah, so very interesting. The reason why we wanted to bring this up is because I texted Jeremiah. I was like, "Yo, this is something that, in my opinion, this is Apple's biggest leap with their product since the iPhone, I would say, in my
Yeah.
opinion." And Jeremiah, you texted me back and you said like, "Yo, when you feel like the future is changing, it's usually a good time to start to prepare for it." So
Yep.
I say all that to say, we want to break down this product and we want to kind of analyze, the pros and cons of it and how it can potentially affect Apple.
Yeah. Obviously the product is revolutionary. The thought process behind them putting money or putting effort into this product, like you said, is because if you look at their earnings, they just did their earnings, I believe, last week,
Hmm.
and they missed on hardware, essentially
Yeah.
iPhones, right? Which is the biggest sales component of Apple itself are the phones. And so what they're starting to realize is that market share is shrinking. We were talking about before we press record. They missed it here in the U.S. China sales have been down. They haven't really established themselves in India, and so they've seen all the all the red flags and the signs telling them like we're gonna have to
Mm,
come up with something different. This has been in the works for years,
right.
and I believe that, like you said, this is going to be a make or break for them. The biggest conversation that we had, and I think this is like, man, we got to record this, is the integration of Apple becoming right the $3 trillion company that it is, and when that took off or when it exponentially grew is in like 2015. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you remember, the first iPhone actually came out in like 2000, in 2009, 2010. It was like the
Yep.
first one,
Yep.
right? But it
Mm-hmm.
took literally 4 or 5, almost 6 years to get to that level and to where everyone essentially had an iPhone. I think the biggest piece of that we were talking about is honestly with the pricing. Apple was like, the iPhone was like $1,200 when it first came out. It just wasn't feasible for people in that time. And then when it went down to like, excuse me, $400 or $500, or you could finance it via, the phone
Mm-hmm.
carriers that you have. That's when everything kind of took off for them. And so the question is, how long is it going to take Apple to integrate this out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we were talking, I mean, the 1% or the niche market that we're focusing on, right, or going
Mm-hmm.
towards. That niche market is, I mean, it's a small group, right? A lot of
Mm-hmm.
money, but a very small group versus the mass, right? The mass production and the mass focus that I think Meta has taken at pricing their headset at like
Mm-hmm.
$500. I think the base model was like 300 something.
Mm.
And so I was just saying like, if Meta gets that market share, it's going to be very difficult for Apple to keep up. And so how long will it take for them to, adjust that pricing and then scale it out in order to take back over that market share? I mean, I don't know, Chris. I mean, you. I mean, I know there's age difference with us or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but are you kind of remembering the same thing as to where like it took a while before iPhone was just like it is now?
Yeah.
Everything was iPhone.
No, 100%. And I think maybe the question I was asking you earlier is I just remember hearing stories from people growing up in the 90s where they had,
Yeah,
I guess, a phone in their car or something like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
or a big old phone or
A
something
big
like that.
phone.
And
Yeah,
when this thing came out, it was like, you said it was like $1,000, $2,000 or something like that, something crazy.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious, how long did it take until that price point came down to where it was reasonable for everybody to have a phone? Was
I mean,
it
it was the
probably early
2000s.
2000s,
It
right?
was 2000s. Yeah, it was Singular was the company that kind of, which is AT&T, which right,
Yeah.
right. So they like kind of got it was the Razor. Like before,
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of niche with phones, but then the Razor kind of started this whole like where it's like
Cell phone.
mass, mass pandemonium to get a phone. It was the Razor, and that
Mm.
kind of started that whole thing. And their price point on it was low. It was
Yeah, it
like
was low.
$300-400 to get the
Yeah.
phone. You know,
So, and that's the question that we're trying to figure out because, like you said, Meta already has a big market share when it comes to this VR space.
yeah,
And if you're wondering, like, what can you even do with this headset? Like, is it even worth 3,500 to justify and buy it, right? It depends on you. It depends on what you're going to use it for, right? A lot of
yeah,
the people that I see getting it are like maybe the one percenters or the people that got
sure,
money or the people that are really into technology, right?
true.
Like one person I think of that we know in our inner circle that would get it is Carlos. I think
Los, yeah,
Los would
Los,
probably
yeah,
pick one up, right?
yeah.
But it's you use it, and for the average person, it's like, okay, it's a dope experience, and we can go on YouTube, but after that, I don't know if it's worth thirty,
I
four
want
hundred dollars.
I want you to think about the integration. Not only that, I want you to think about most people don't even use all the features on their cell phone.
Right, right.
And so you're talking
100%.
to a user base that doesn't even fully know how to use a cell phone. And then you're integrating spatial
Hmm.
computing into, their brains, quantum spatial computing and things of like a higher level. It's for a specific group of people.
Yeah,
I think I think Meta kind of hit it right
right.
by saying we're going to make ours not minimal, but we'll make it user friendly. The
Hmm.
integrations with Spotify, freaking YouTube, all these things,
Hmm.
because then that's a big thing too. It's like, do these companies and apps are they going to integrate into, right, the headset?
And they
Because if
haven't.
they don't, no,
YouTube hasn't. They're like,
no,
we're
they
not
fought it,
messing.
Spotify as well. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's like, what are you really going to be? What browser
yeah,
are you going to use? Because what if they get blocked? Like if you don't have Google, because if you don't have YouTube, then you're not going to have Google. It's the same
right.
company, right? And so it's like, what are you using? I'm using Safari. Okay, but like that's what I'm
Hmm.
saying. It's a deeper thought process that goes into this. Like, how successful is it going to be if Facebook? I keep saying Facebook because that's what
Yeah.
they always advertise, Oculus, whatever. But Meta has their headset and it has all of these apps and
Hmm.
everything's integrated. And it's like, do I pay 3,500 for this like revolutionary experience, but I don't really know what I'm getting, or do I just pay the $500 and I know
Hmm.
exactly what I'm getting? I get all the stuff that's on my phone in my headset.
Hmm. Yeah, man. And it's interesting because I don't know. I'm thinking like, how do they go from $3,400? So let's just say $800. Are they
Yeah.
just from one year to the next, they're just going to cut it in half? How does that work?
So they're going to have to look at pricing, right? The sourcing of all of the stuff that goes in it, the components, and then also you have to think about the layoffs and stuff that's going into it. So there's the people
Hmm.
component. That's the biggest piece because you have to pay people for the construction and the engineering of these things. And so how do you streamline that? Is it AI involved? Is it right? And then that's difficult because I mean, ChatGPT is Microsoft. So there's all
Hmm.
these different components that people really don't think about. And then the pricing is at 3,400. So to get it down to 800,
Yeah,
$700, that's going to take some years because
take
the
some years.
process itself isn't streamlined.
Yeah. And so we're not, I mean, if you look up videos on like how this product works, I mean, it looks phenomenal. It looks like a great
Yeah.
experience. It looks
Oh,
high
yeah.
quality. It looks,
It's crazy.
um, I, I'm not, if I'm not mistaken, they partnered with a glass company for people
Yeah.
that wear glasses.
Yeah.
And if I heard this right, essentially you can scan the code to the glass and you can enter in your prescription and the glass will automatically
It
adjust
adjusts.
to your, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
It
that's top
adjusts.
tier. That's different.
I mean, but is it too far in the future? Do you get what I'm saying? Like you
Yeah,
have to build a bridge for people. And so
for
is that
sure.
has that bridge been built? I don't think the bridge is completely built. And so you have this on the other side, this crazy experience. The pricing is up
Hmm.
there, right? But there's no complete bridge. And so
Hmm.
you got to be able to build that technological bridge to get people from point A where they are right now to get over to where you want them to be and have that mass adoption of the technology. So I think they still need to work on some of
Hmm.
the infrastructure in the background and work on a little bit more of getting that bridge because me myself personally, yeah, I could go buy the 3,500, but would I do it? It's for me a lot of things are based on principle. I
Hmm.
mean, you don't even have the stuff that I want. I'd rather just go get the meta version and
Right. Right.
right like and so that's
Yeah.
the thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and like I want to be clear that we're not knocking the VR
Not at all.
experience because
Not
I
at
think
all.
the VR technology, I
Crazy.
think it's insane. And if
It's
you think
crazy.
about, it's funny because I was telling my wife the other day, I was talking to a gentleman at the gym,
Yeah.
and he's a teacher. He's like a third grade teacher or something like that. And I was
Hmm.
curious. I'm like, what type of technology do you guys use in school? Because I'm out the loop, right?
Yeah.
And he says all the kids have a Chromebook. So now I'm thinking about like VR headset,
It's coming. It's
it's
coming.
coming.
Yeah, government. So there'll be subsidies and things that are that are given to Apple, obviously, to sponsor or give those into the schools. All that stuff is inevitable. The same way
Hmm.
you never thought you'd have computers and Chromebooks and iPads, you have all that stuff in schools right now, right? Kids get an iPad to do their
Hmm.
studying and stuff like that. All that stuff is inevitable because of the Web3 space and how it's developing, and you'll have to have things that can adapt to that space. And
Hmm.
so when we look at the movies, Minority Report, all these things, and we thought it's kind of crazy how the people would pull up on the mirror and do
Yeah,
their
yeah, yep.
and right, all that's happening. So that's
Mhm.
realistic. It's inevitable. So it's just how long does it take for them to get there, and then who are going to be the leaders at being able to adapt that and get it to scale, basically.
Yep, 100%. So it's gonna be very interesting to see. It's gonna, man, I'm very curious to see how Apple's gonna play out because, like you said, they have to bridge that gap. It's a
It's
great product, but like, how can they get it in the hands of everybody?
And I mean,
And how
maybe it
quickly
takes
can they
them
do
time.
it?
Yeah, and a lot of the people that were at the beginning stages of when the iPhone came out, they're no longer there. A lot of them went to Samsung, right? And that's how Samsung like went and took, there's always something, right? And so maybe those people aren't there. And so the experience of saying, hey, in order to scale this, we're gonna have to do ABC. Maybe that
Hmm.
experience is gone. Maybe they've
Yeah,
left already. And so this is a new group that's having to learn.
true.
Obviously, they got a great CEO, great COO. The guys are working. So I'm not saying that they obviously are keeping their ear to the street, but
Yeah.
yeah,
How much do you think Apple's ecosystem plays into like their business model, right?
it's
Because you think
everything.
it's everything, right?
It's
I mean,
everything. They
just
want the full Apple experience. Look at
yeah,
yourself. I'm not an Apple person. I invest, but I'm not an
right.
Apple person, right? What did you say, bro? I got MacBook, I got an iPad, I have the Apple phone, I got right the phone,
AirPods.
iPhone, earpod,
Yeah.
everything's Apple, and so their ecosystem it integrates you into where you have to do everything with them. I think
Hmm.
that is one of the biggest ploys, plus minus, right? It's worked for them up to this point, but PC's always been able to
Right.
outsell them essentially, right? Because you could integrate anything in the PC. Doesn't matter what the make model, you can integrate it, right? And I think that's a strong suit. And as we start to move forward, Apple's going to have to maybe sit and think about integration because if you
Hmm.
can't get YouTube stuff like if they don't want to do business on your on your hardware, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's a little rough.
Yeah, and you got to have YouTube on there. That's, I mean, that's the
Got
huge
to.
selling point to sit down and
That's
watch something
huge.
or Netflix. I don't even think Netflix is on there.
Nope. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. It's a whole something's happening, obviously,
Yeah.
that we're not privy to contractually, or there's some things happening as to why these guys don't want to be on there. So obviously there's been some contractual agreements or something that's already been made outside of them. Maybe Meta's
Hmm.
already maybe Zuckerberg's been on tear, man. He got into the
Yeah.
gym, got his mind. So that so maybe that mind, maybe his
He's
and
been
I said I
sharp
think we talked about this like 6, 7 months ago. He had a plan and he's been
for
working that
sure.
plan
Been working it.
like crazy. So yeah,
Do you think this product was rushed? Do
I
you feel
do.
like do you
I
feel like
do.
they, it was like, yo, Meta Quest 3, we haven't even
I
dropped
do.
anything?
I do. Like I said, I think Zuckerberg had a very strategic plan. He had been laying low. He had those lawsuits. The government was at him. He'd been laying low for like 6 years.
Hmm.
Last major purchase was Instagram. And they were just, I
Right.
mean, or maybe WhatsApp, but they were just kind of
What's
just
up?
laying low, and he's been planning this. And then when it hit, he did it and it just went boom. It was threads. And then from there, if you notice, everything just went like one, two. And you could say, I guess it started with Web3 when it kind of the
Yeah.
metaverse that didn't kind of pan out, but that
Hmm.
started the plan and then it just knocked the dominoes down. And so I think that maybe Apple wasn't prepared and they felt like they had to catch up. So,
That's
you know,
exactly what it looks like. That's exactly what it looks like.
yep,
Wow. Crazy stuff, man. So yeah, we're gonna transition a little bit and we're gonna jump into another article that directly relates to everything that we're talking about right now.
for sure.
The title of the article says why you must be concerned about the hot Magnificent Seven trade, right? So
Yeah.
he's pretty much talking about the seven different tech companies that a lot of people have been investing in recently, and um, pretty much saying like, hey, you should really evolve your thinking around investing in these seven companies. Um, he also mentioned in the article like this is a direct quote. He says, I'm not sure about you, but I haven't been blown away with the results from these
Hmm.
companies lately, right? Jeremiah
Hmm.
just mentioned earnings last week from Apple and they fell short. So yeah, I want to jump into this, and I want to know your opinion from this article, Jeremiah. First of all, I feel like just to say this, it sounded like it was written from like this dude, kind of a low key. I don't want to say hater, but
A
like
hater. A
a little bit
hater.
of a hater, a little
Yeah,
bit,
hater.
but
Yeah,
good information in there.
for sure.
I think the way he was thinking, especially as an investor, at times you have to be a little bit more pessimistic, maybe not pessimistic, but a
Let's
lot
say
more
cynical. Let's say cynical.
cynical, maybe
Yeah.
skeptical.
Yeah.
Um, so I do like how he was thinking and looking at like, yo, we've been investing in these for a while. We should probably start evolving how we think about these companies.
I
What do you
agree.
think? Yeah.
I don't think you've seen if you've seen any of the companies, Microsoft has just done phenomenal. Microsoft actually in 2023 made leaps and bounds because Apple was so far ahead at one time. Microsoft bounced back. ChatGPT, OpenAI involved in that, but Microsoft bounced back. You've seen the earnings did well with them as well. But Nvidia, right? The question is
Hmm.
how long can Nvidia, how long can that go?
Right,
Right?
right.
How close does the gap come with AMD and as the second chip maker? You know, there's multiple now get into that GPU space. Like, how does it? So the whole thought process is how long can you sustain these type of results? You can't. I mean, it's
Hmm.
impossible that you just keep having exponential growth, right?
Hmm.
Because it just doesn't work that way. Something
Don't
is
work that way.
adopted, right? The excitement from retail comes. There's well investors that come in, they invest, retail then blows up. But that cycle can't continue to happen. It'll plateau,
Hmm.
right? It'll plateau. It has no way to stop. And so I think what they're also saying is if you look at this article, you have to look at it from a holistic point of view of the economy itself.
Hmm.
Out of the S&P 500, these seven stocks have kept that entire index, right,
Yeah, yeah.
afloat. How long can that be sustained? That's so much weight. Now, obviously, they're the biggest companies in the world, right? But telltale signs, Tesla, right, missed on their earnings. They bet on volume sales when they lowered their price for the models. That didn't work out, right? So that's red flag. Boom. Then you bounce over to Apple, the quintessential product, which is iPhone. It
Hmm.
missed.
Hmm.
So there's signs showing that there's cracks in that foundation.
Yeah.
It's time to start shifting and diversifying to other businesses, whether it be healthcare or whatever it is,
Hmm.
infrastructure, manufacturing, whatever it is, and start looking at other companies that are coming up with innovative new things. And I've seen actually, I think we saw Novo Overdose, which is the weight the weight loss drug thing or whatever.
Hmm.
They've just been making a terror too. So it's like it's time to look into other things. The only
The weight loss
um
drug.
huh?
The weight loss drug?
Yeah, there's a weight loss drug. It's
Ozempic?
Novo. It's I mean, I haven't taken it, but
Yeah.
women have been taking like it's blown up like crazy. This company,
Okay.
it's like it's
It's the
made
company that makes it.
yeah, and it's
Okay, I gotta
made
look into that.
crazy money. It's made crazy money. And so the only other
Interesting.
industry, right, or category of industry that has outperformed tech is healthcare.
Hmm.
Been saying that. So it's about time, probably EY, Lilly, things like that, like looking into other companies, Johnson Johnson. There's all these other companies, and obviously big pharma. People have some moral things with that or whatever. But I think this article is just saying it's time to diversify. Where everybody put everything in the seven stocks, and there's cracks showing.
The company you mentioned, is it Novo Nordisk? Is that what you
Yep,
mentioned?
yep.
So they are the one that created Ozempic, and Ozempic, yeah,
That's
that
the
thing.
that's the blow up, right?
Dang,
So
that's
imagine if you
crazy.
were early adoption of that, like freaking Pelosi and all the that's
Yeah.
a whole nother conversation, but all these congressmen and stuff, they're up like crazy.
Mm,
But just imagine if you had adopted that early. And so that's what I'm saying. It's time to start looking into other things. The seven will
yeah.
be there. Top three, especially, they'll always be there. It's not that you're not going to make money on them. But it's time to start doing what do we always say? Due diligence,
Due
right?
diligence.
Get in there, start researching, learn some new stuff, and you'd be surprised the gains that people would probably see if they started to investigate new companies.
We need to put that on a shirt, man.
I think I'm a trademark that thing, man.
Hey, yeah, make that happen.
Yeah,
So let me ask you, out of these seven companies in the
yeah.
next 5 to 10 years, which ones do you think is most likely to fall off, if any?
Um,
'Cause I'm thinking Tesla, the situation they got going on with,
yeah, but Tesla will shift because that conglomerate is so strong. Well, SpaceX will become back bigger with them making their moves to Mars and all that stuff. So Elon will be good. Tesla maybe, but I really think Nvidia. I think the
mm,
competition for the chips are going to
yeah,
start to get a lot more as the sourcing and stuff as we come out of the pandemic and the sourcing becomes easier for the components to make the chips. You'll start to see some bigger players. Not to obviously Nvidia always they have such a huge market share. They won't essentially lose a whole bunch of market share, But with more competition, if they just chip away at that, then you start to see lesser gains. They miss the marks on their earning reports. Retail investors pull out a little bit, go other ways. That's what I see. I
Mm-hmm.
just, not to say it'll drop, I say it'll plateau. Let's say that.
Do you think people are going to be wishing they invested in the current prices of these seven companies? Let's just
I
say
do.
5 years. Okay.
I do.
So that's something else to think about as well, that
You're gonna
exact
in
point.
this lifetime, you'll see the first trillionaire. The world, well, in recorded history, they've said
Hmm.
there's other people, but
Right. Right.
in recorded history, you've never seen a trillionaire. You'll see it, and they won't be super old. They'll be old enough to enjoy that money. I don't know what you do with that type of money, but Musk or Bezos, some Arnold, like someone's going to be a trillionaire,
So you
which is
saying it's going to come from one of these companies? It could come from one of
yeah,
these companies.
most
Okay.
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Makes sense. Cool. I mean, did you have anything else? We went over a lot. I mean, I think today was a great discussion. Did you have anything else?
No, no more other than guys. Obviously in the comments, we appreciate all your comments. Appreciate you guys watching. If there are articles or things you want us to discuss, we're always super vigilant over the page. Me and
Hmm.
Chris go back and forth. We see different comments and stuff. Leave your comments.
Hmm.
Leave articles, something maybe you didn't understand or you want us to explain, and then we can bring that up because
Yep.
I want to make sure that we're interacting with you guys and that you're getting your answers and your questions answered. So that's
Great
it.
point. Great point. Love that. And yeah, that's it for me. And as always, we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.